The veterinarian's hands trembled as she stared at the X-rays in disbelief, her face draining of color. The small crowd gathered at her clinic watched in stunned silence as she revealed what the scans showed. The sickly rescue horse that everyone had written off as worthless harbored a secret that would change veterinary medicine forever. No one could have imagined that a little girl's stubborn compassion at a rural auction would lead to one of the most remarkable medical discoveries in equine history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn wind whistled through the weathered beams of Miller's Horse Auction House, carrying with it the mingled scents of hay, leather, and desperation. Among the usual crowd of seasoned buyers and curious onlookers, 11-year-old Sophie Bennett stood out like a wildflower in a concrete jungle, her cotton dress whipped around her legs as she clutched a worn leather pouch containing every penny she had saved from 3 years of collecting eggs, mucking stalls, and helping local farmers with their harvests. Sophie wasn't supposed to be there alone. Her parents, both small-town veterinarians, were attending an emergency call at the Peterson farm, leaving her in the care of her older brother, Jack. But Sophie had overheard the auction workers talking about the death row horses, the ones too sick or injured to sell, destined for a fate she couldn't bear to imagine. She had slipped away from Jack during lunch, driven by a purpose that burned brighter than her fear of punishment. The auction house's back pen held a sight that made Sophie's heart constrict. Among the dejected equines stood a horse that barely deserved the name. A skeletal creature with a dull, patchy coat and eyes that seemed to have forgotten how to hope. But something in those eyes caught Sophie's attention, a flicker of intelligence that others had overlooked. "That one's not even worth the bullet it'll take to put him down," a burly trader sneered, noticing Sophie's interest. "Best you move. Along, little girl. This ain't no place for fairy tales about saving broken horses." Sophie squared her shoulders, channeling every ounce of determination she had inherited from her mother. "Every animal deserves a chance," she declared, her voice carrying the unwavering conviction of youth. "And sometimes the ones everyone gives up on turn out to be the most special of all." The trader's laugh drew the attention of others nearby. "Listen to the little vet in training. Guess having doctors for parents makes you think you can fix anything, huh?" He gestured toward the horse. "That bag of bones probably has more diseases than you can spell, sweetheart. Even if someone was crazy enough to buy him, the vet bills would bankrupt them." Sophie approached the pen slowly, remembering everything. Her parents had taught her about reading a horse's body language. The emaciated animal lifted its head slightly, nostrils flaring as it caught her scent. Most people would have seen only weakness in its trembling legs, but Sophie noticed how it still managed to maintain its balance, how its ears tracked movement with alert precision despite its exhaustion. "He's smart," she murmured, more to herself than the skeptical audience gathering around her. "Look at how he's conserving energy, how he's aware of everything happening around him. That's not a broken spirit, that's survival intelligence." A familiar voice cut through the growing murmurs. "Sophie Ann Bennett." Jack's tone carried equal measures of relief and exasperation as he pushed through the crowd. "Do you have any idea how worried I've been? Mum and Dad are going to kill me." But Sophie didn't turn away from the horse. "Jack, look at him. Really look. There's something special here, I can feel it." Her brother, 16, and already apprenticing at the parents' clinic during summers, paused in his scolding. His expression shifted from anger to concern as he studied both his sister and the horse. "Soph, I know you want to help, but this isn't like nursing a wounded bird back to health. This horse—" He trailed off, his medical training warring, with his desire to protect his sister from heartbreak. "I've been saving," Sophie pressed, sensing her brother's wavering resolve. 3 years of morning chores and weekend work. I have almost $2,000. She clutched her leather pouch tighter. "Please, Jack, help me convince Mom and Dad. You're the one who always says that being a vet means believing in healing, even when others don't." The auctioneer's voice crackled over the ancient speaker system, announcing the start of the last chance sales. Sophie's heart pounded as the skeletal horse was led into the ring, its hooves striking the ground with surprising precision despite its weakness. Next up, lot number 157, male, estimated age 5 to 7 years. No papers, no known history. Sold as is, no guarantees. The auctioneer's voice carried none of its usual enthusiasm. "Starting bid at $100, anyone? Folks, this is a mercy sale. Someone want to give this animal a quick end?" The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. Sophie stepped forward, her voice clear and strong despite its youth. $2,000! The crowd's reaction transformed from dismissive chuckles to shocked whispers. The auctioneer blinked, caught off guard by both the bidder's age and the amount. "Young lady, are your parents here?" "I am." Jack stepped forward, placing a protective hand on his sister's shoulder. "And I can vouch that she has the money." He squeezed Sophie's shoulder gently. "But Soph, are you absolutely sure that's everything you've saved?" Sophie met her brother's gaze with unwavering certainty. "Some things are worth more than money, Jack. You taught me that." What happened next would be talked about in Miller's auction house for years to come. No one else bid. Whether out of respect for Sophie's conviction, or simply because they thought her foolish enough to take on what they saw as a lost cause, the hammer fell at $2,000. As Sophie approached her new horse with the lead rope, the animal's head lifted higher, its gaze focusing on her with an intensity that belied its weakened state. She reached out slowly, letting it catch her scent. "Hello," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm Sophie, and I promise you're safe now. We're going to prove them all wrong." The drive home in Jack's old pickup truck was tense with anticipation. The horse had loaded surprisingly well, showing an understanding of basic commands that hinted at previous training. Sophie sat in the truck bed, monitoring her charge through the back window, while Jack made the dreaded call to their parents. "They're not happy," he reported after ending the call, his voice carrying through the open rear window. "But Dad's clearing the isolation stall, and Mom's cancelling her afternoon appointments to examine him as soon as we get back." Sophie nodded, her eyes never leaving the horse trailer. "He needs a name," she mused. "Something that means more than what people see on the surface." She thought for a moment, then smiled. "Phoenix, because he's going to rise from these ashes and show everyone what he's capable of." What no one knew then, not even Sophie with all her young optimism, was that Phoenix would indeed rise, but in a way that would challenge everything the veterinary world thought it knew about equine medicine. The mystery hidden beneath his ravaged exterior would soon leave doctors and scientists questioning decades of established medical knowledge. But for now, he was simply a starved, sick horse that had found the one person willing to look past his broken exterior and see the extraordinary spirit within. And sometimes that one person is all it takes to change not just one life, but many. As Jack's truck turned onto the long driveway leading to their family's veterinary clinic, Sophie whispered a promise to her new charge. "This isn't the end of your story, Phoenix. It's just the beginning." The Bennett family's veterinary clinic buzzed with unusual tension as Jack's truck pulled up to the weathered barn. Dr. Sarah Bennett, still in her work scrubs from the emergency call, stood at the entrance with an expression that mingled professional concern with maternal worry. Behind her, Dr. Thomas Bennett prepared the isolation stall, his movements quick and purposeful. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. "Sophie Ann Bennett," her mother began, but stopped short when the trailer door opened, revealing Phoenix's condition. Years of veterinary experience couldn't mask the shock that crossed her face. "Oh, sweetheart." "Mom, please," Sophie interjected, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I know what you're going to say, but look at his eyes. Really look." Dr. Sarah Bennett approached the trailer slowly, her clinical gaze assessing every detail of the emaciated horse. Phoenix's ribs cast sharp shadows against his dull coat, but his head remained high, tracking her movement with unexpected alertness. "Jack, get my examination kit," she commanded, her professional demeanor taking over. "Thomas, we'll need blood, panels, and call Dr. Rodriguez for a consultation." Sophie helped guide Phoenix from the trailer, her small hand steady on the lead rope. The horse followed with surprising grace, his steps measured despite his weakness. Dr. Bennett watched their interaction closely, noting how the horse responded to her daughter's quiet confidence. "His coordination is remarkable, given his condition," she muttered, more to herself than the others. "No obvious neurological deficits." She began her examination, her hands moving with practiced efficiency over Phoenix's body. Temperatures elevated, but not dangerously so. Respiratory rates high, but that could be stress. Then she reached his chest and her hands froze. "Thomas," she called sharply, "come listen to this." Dr. Thomas Bennett joined his wife, pressing his stethoscope against Phoenix's ribcage. His brow furrowed in concentration, then confusion. "That's impossible." "What?" Sophie demanded, her grip on the lead rope tightening. "What's wrong with him?" Her parents exchanged a look that Sophie had seen before, the one they shared when faced with a medical mystery that defied conventional explanation. "His heart rhythm," her mother explained carefully. "It's unusual. I've never heard anything quite like it." Dr. Rodriguez, the clinic's cardiac specialist, arrived within the hour. By then, Phoenix had been settled into the isolation stall, accepting the IV fluids and initial treatments with stoic patience. The specialist's examination lasted longer than usual, his expression growing increasingly perplexed. "We need to get him to the university hospital," Dr. Rodriguez finally declared. "This cardiac pattern, it's not just unusual, it's unique. And given his overall condition, he shouldn't be standing, let alone as alert as he is." Sophie, who had refused to leave Phoenix's side, felt her stomach clench. "But he'll be okay, right? We can help him." The specialists exchanged glances. "Sophie," her father began gently, "Phoenix's condition is very complex. His blood work shows severe abnormalities, and that heart rhythm could be revolutionary," Dr. Rodriguez interrupted, his eyes bright with scientific curiosity. If what I'm hearing is what I think it is, this horse could change our understanding of equine cardiac function, but we need more advanced diagnostics. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Sophie helped prepare Phoenix for transport to the university's veterinary hospital, whispering encouragement as the trailer was loaded. Her parents arranged emergency admission, calling in favors from colleagues to ensure immediate attention. At the university hospital, Phoenix drew a crowd of specialists, each adding their expertise to the growing puzzle. Dr. Elena Martinez, the hospital's chief of cardiology, stared at the ECG readouts with mounting excitement. "This is extraordinary," she breathed, tracing the unusual patterns with her finger. "His heart has developed compensatory mechanisms I've never seen before. It's as if it's rewired itself to maintain function despite severe stress." More tests followed: echocardiograms, blood oxygen studies, specialized imaging. With each new result, the excitement among the medical team grew. Phoenix's heart hadn't just adapted, it had evolved in ways that defied current medical understanding. "The implications for cardiac research are staggering," Dr. Martinez explained to the Bennett family. "His heart has developed alternative pathways for blood flow, creating a natural bypass system that shouldn't be possible. This could revolutionize our approach to treating heart conditions in both animals and humans." Sophie absorbed the medical terminology with the fierce concentration of someone determined to understand everything about their beloved patient. "But can you help him?" she pressed, her practical concern cutting through the scientific excitement. Dr. Martinez smiled, recognizing a kindred spirit in the young girl's dedication. "Yes, we can help him. In fact, Phoenix is helping us more than we're helping him. His condition is teaching us new possibilities in cardiac adaptation that could save countless lives." The treatment plan was complex, combining traditional rehabilitation with careful monitoring of Phoenix's unique cardiac function. Sophie insisted on being involved in every aspect, meticulously recording his progress in a notebook that would later become invaluable to the research team. Word spread through the veterinary community about the miracle horse with the impossible heart. Researchers and specialists began arriving from other institutions, eager to study Phoenix's extraordinary adaptation. But to Sophie, he was still simply the horse that everyone else had given up on. One evening, as she sat in Phoenix's stall completing her daily observations, Dr. Martinez joined her. "You know," the cardiologist said thoughtfully, "in medicine, we sometimes become so focused on textbook definitions of normal that we miss the extraordinary adaptations right in front of us. Your Phoenix is teaching us to look deeper, to question our assumptions about what's possible." Sophie nodded, stroking Phoenix's neck as he dozed. "Mom always says that healing isn't just about medicine. It's about believing in the patient's will to survive." "Your mother's wise," Dr. Martinez smiled. "And you saw something in Phoenix that all those experienced buyers at the auction missed. You saw his spirit." As weeks passed, Phoenix's transformation became nothing short of miraculous. His coat began to shine, muscles developed beneath the once prominent ribs, and his eyes sparkled with increasing vitality. But it was his heart that continued to amaze the medical community. "His cardiac function is actually improving," Dr. Rodriguez reported during one checkup. "The alternative pathways his heart developed are becoming more efficient. It's as if his body created its own solution to what should have been fatal problems. Research papers were written. Medical conferences buzzed with discussions of the Phoenix Protocol, a new approach to cardiac treatment inspired by the horse's remarkable adaptation. Sophie's detailed observations became part of the scientific record, her childish handwriting documenting one of the most significant cases in modern veterinary medicine. But perhaps the most profound impact was on the way the medical community viewed cases that seemed beyond hope. Phoenix's case became a symbol of the body's incredible capacity for adaptation, a reminder that sometimes the most remarkable breakthroughs come from the most unlikely sources. 1 year after that fateful auction day, Phoenix stood proud and healthy in the university hospital's demonstration ring, his coat gleaming as Sophie led him through a series of exercises designed to showcase his recovered strength. Medical students gathered to learn about his case, not just for its scientific significance, but for its lesson about looking beyond surface appearances. Sometimes the greatest medical discoveries come from cases that everyone else has dismissed. Dr. Martinez told her students, watching Phoenix move with fluid grace. This horse, with his extraordinary heart, is revolutionizing our understanding of cardiac adaptation. And we might have lost this knowledge if not for a child who refused to accept that he was beyond saving. Sophie, now 12 and more determined than ever to follow in her parents' veterinary footsteps, beamed with pride. She had known somehow that Phoenix was special, but even she couldn't have imagined how special or how many lives his unique condition would help save. As she led Phoenix back to his stall, now more like a comfortable apartment, given his status as the hospital's most valuable research patient, Sophie reflected on how much had changed. The horse that no one wanted had become a pioneer in medical science, his very existence challenging everything doctors thought they knew about cardiac function. But to Sophie, the most important thing hadn't changed at all. Phoenix was still her friend, still the horse she had recognized as extraordinary when everyone else saw only weakness. His remarkable heart had simply proven what she had known all along, that sometimes the most amazing things come in the most unexpected packages. That evening, as the sun set over the hospital grounds, Sophie sat in Phoenix's stall, updating her observation journal. Dr. Martinez had asked her to write an introduction for an upcoming paper about Phoenix's case, wanting to include the perspective of the young girl who had started it all. Sometimes, Sophie wrote, her pencil moving steadily across the page, the greatest medical discoveries aren't made in laboratories or research facilities. Sometimes they're found in the places everyone else has stopped looking, in the patients everyone else has given up on. Phoenix taught me that healing isn't just about medicine. It's about seeing the extraordinary potential hidden beneath the surface and having the courage to fight for it when no one else will. The medical breakthrough surrounding Phoenix's extraordinary heart soon attracted attention beyond the veterinary world. One crisp morning, as Sophie arrived for her daily visit, she found an unusual crowd gathered at the university hospital. Among them stood Dr. James Chen, a renowned human cardiac surgeon from Boston General Hospital. "Remarkable," Dr. Chen muttered, studying Phoenix's latest echocardiogram. "The similarities to human cardiac adaptation patterns are uncanny. This could revolutionize our approach to treating congenital heart defects in children." Sophie watched from Phoenix's stall as the doctors discussed complex medical theories. Her understanding of cardiac terminology had grown exponentially over the past months, but some concepts still eluded her. What she did understand, however, was the excitement in their voices. The way his heart created new pathways, Dr. Chen continued, gesturing to the intricate network displayed on the screen. It's like nothing we've seen before. In human medicine, we've theorized about the possibility of natural bypass development, but we've never observed it at this level. Dr. Martinez nodded enthusiastically. What's most fascinating is how these adaptations occurred. According to his blood work history, Phoenix should have experienced complete cardiac failure months ago. Instead, his heart essentially rewrote its own rulebook. A young resident raised her hand. Could this have implications for pediatric cardiac patients? That's exactly why I'm here, Dr. Chen replied. We have a 6-year-old patient, Emma, with a similar structural abnormality. Traditional treatments haven't been successful, but if we could understand how Phoenix's heart developed these alternative pathways. Sophie's attention sharpened at the mention of another child. She approached the group, her voice clear despite her nervousness. What's wrong with Emma's heart? The doctors turned, some smiling at her presence. They had grown accustomed to Sophie's involvement in Phoenix's case, respecting her detailed observations and unique bond with the horse. Dr. Chen knelt to her level, his expression gentle. Emma was born with a heart condition that makes it difficult for blood to flow properly. Like Phoenix, her heart has tried to adapt, but it hasn't been as successful. We're hoping that by studying Phoenix's case, we might find new ways to help her and other children like her. Sophie processed this information, her young mind making connections that sometimes surprised the medical professionals. Is that why you're taking new scans of his heart during exercise? She asked, noting the additional equipment being set up around Phoenix's examination area. Exactly, Dr. Martinez confirmed. We want to understand how these adaptive pathways function under different levels of stress. Phoenix's exercise tolerance is remarkably high now, considering his condition. The next few weeks brought a flurry of new tests and observations. Sophie adjusted her schedule, arriving at the hospital before school to help with morning examinations and returning afterward to assist with the afternoon protocols. Her parents worried about her intense dedication, but they recognized the unique educational opportunity this presented. One afternoon, while helping to cool Phoenix down after an exercise session, Sophie met Emma. The little girl was small for her age, with bright eyes that reminded Sophie of Phoenix's determined gaze. She sat in a wheelchair, watching the proceedings, with intense interest. "Is that the magic horse?" Emma asked, her voice carrying the slight breathlessness common to cardiac patients. Sophie led Phoenix closer, careful to maintain a safe distance. "This is Phoenix. He's not magic. He's just very special, like you." Emma's face lit up. "Dr. Chen says his heart found new ways to work, just like mine is trying to do. Can I pet him?" After checking with both Dr. Chen and Phoenix's behavior, Sophie helped Emma reach out to touch Phoenix's velvet nose. The horse lowered his head gently, seeming to understand the need for extra care with this young visitor. "See how calm his breathing is now?" Sophie explained, slipping naturally into a teaching role. "When I first found him, he could barely stand, but his heart found new ways to keep him strong. Dr. Chen thinks understanding how Phoenix's heart adapted could help other people's hearts learn new ways too." Emma nodded seriously, like teaching our hearts new tricks. Exactly like that, Sophie grinned. Phoenix is the best teacher because he never gave up, even when things were really hard. This interaction sparked an idea in Sophie's mind. With the doctor's approval, she began documenting Phoenix's case in terms that younger patients could understand. Her journal entries transformed into illustrated stories about a brave horse whose heart learned to work in special ways. Dr. Martinez discovered Sophie working on these drawings one evening. "This is brilliant," she exclaimed, flipping through the pages. "We've been so focused on the medical aspects, we almost missed the inspirational impact this case could have." Soon, Phoenix's stall became a regular stop for young cardiac patients at the adjacent children's hospital. Sophie and the medical team developed a special program where children could learn about heart function through Phoenix's story. The horse seemed to understand his role, remaining patient and gentle with each young visitor. The research continued to yield groundbreaking results. Phoenix's adaptive pathways provided new insights into cardiac plasticity, the heart's ability to create alternative solutions to structural problems. Dr. Chen's team began developing new surgical techniques based on these natural adaptations. Emma became the first patient to benefit from these discoveries. Her surgery, while still complex, was modified to encourage her heart to develop similar adaptive pathways to those observed in Phoenix. The medical team held their breath as they monitored her recovery. 2 months after Emma's surgery, she returned to visit Phoenix. This time, she walked into the stable under her own power, her cheeks pink with improved circulation. "Phoenix," she called out, rushing to his stall with newfound energy. "Look what your special heart helped my heart learn." Sophie watched their interaction with tears in her eyes, understanding that Phoenix's impact extended far beyond anything she could have imagined that day at the auction. His extraordinary heart wasn't just beating stronger, it was teaching. Doctors knew ways to help hearts heal. The medical journals continued to publish papers about the Phoenix Protocol, but equally important were the stories of hope spreading through the cardiac care community. Parents of children with complex heart conditions began reaching out, seeking information about the horse whose unique adaptation was revolutionizing treatment approaches. 1 year and 3 months after Sophie's fateful auction visit, she stood beside Phoenix in the university hospital's main lecture hall. Before them sat an audience of medical professionals, students, and families of cardiac patients. Dr. Chen and Dr. Martinez had organized a special presentation about the impact of Phoenix's case on both veterinary and human medicine. "What we learned from Phoenix," Dr. Chen explained, "isn't just about cardiac adaptation. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most profound medical breakthroughs come from unexpected sources. This horse, discovered by a child who refused to see him as worthless, has opened new frontiers in our understanding of cardiac healing." Sophie stepped forward, her voice clear and confident as she shared her perspective. "Phoenix taught me that every heart has its own way of being brave," she said, stroking his gleaming neck. "Sometimes we just need to believe in that bravery long enough for medicine to catch up with it." The presentation ended with a standing ovation, but the real celebration came afterward, when Emma and other young cardiac patients gathered around Phoenix, sharing their own stories of brave hearts, learning new ways to heal. That evening, as Sophie completed her daily observations, she added a special note to her journal. Today I realized that saving one life sometimes means saving many lives. Phoenix's extraordinary heart isn't just beating for him anymore. It's beating for every patient who needs to believe in the possibility of healing in unexpected ways. Dr. Martinez found her there and sat beside her in the straw. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "in medicine, we often talk about breakthrough cases, but what we don't always acknowledge is the courage it takes to recognize these breakthroughs when they don't look the way we expect them to." Sophie nodded, understanding that her journey with Phoenix had become something far greater than a simple rescue story. It had become a testament to the power of looking beyond surface appearances, of believing in the extraordinary potential hidden within seemingly hopeless cases. "Phoenix didn't just teach us about hearts," she replied, watching as her horse dozed peacefully in his stall. "He taught us about hope, and sometimes that's the most important medicine of all." As Phoenix's groundbreaking cardiac research continued to transform medical understanding, an unexpected visitor arrived at the university hospital. Dr. Victoria Hughes, founder of the International Equine Research Foundation, stood in the observation area, her keen eyes studying the now healthy horse with intense interest. "Extraordinary," she murmured, reviewing Phoenix's latest test results. "Not just the cardiac adaptation, but the implications for genetic research. Have you done any DNA sequencing?" Dr. Martinez nodded enthusiastically. "Initial results suggest something fascinating. Phoenix appears to carry a previously unknown genetic marker that might explain his heart's unique adaptive capabilities." Sophie, who had arrived for her after-school visit, listened intently. Over the months, she had learned to understand complex medical terminology, but genetics opened a whole new frontier of questions. "A genetic marker?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "Like something he was born with?" Dr. Hughes smiled at Sophie's engagement. "Exactly. Think of it like a special instruction in Phoenix's genetic code that told his heart how to create these amazing new pathways. If we can understand this marker, we might be able to identify other animals, and even humans, who carry similar potential for cardiac adaptation." The revelations sparked a new phase in Phoenix's contribution to medical science. Blood samples were carefully analyzed, genetic sequences mapped, and comparative studies initiated. Sophie watched in fascination as researchers discovered that Phoenix's genetic marker wasn't just rare, it was unique. "It's as if his DNA contains a blueprint for cardiac resilience that we've never seen before," Dr. Hughes explained during a research briefing. "This could revolutionize how we approach genetic screening for heart conditions." The implications were staggering. If they could understand how this genetic marker functioned, it might be possible to develop new treatments that could activate similar adaptive responses in other patients. The research team expanded, now including genetic specialists from around the world. One morning, while helping with Phoenix's daily exercise routine, Sophie overheard an intense discussion between Dr. Hughes and her parents. "We need to establish a dedicated research facility," Dr. Hughes was saying, "a place where we can study, not just Phoenix, but also begin a breeding program to understand how this genetic marker might be passed on." Sophie's heart skipped a beat. A breeding program would mean moving Phoenix to a new facility, away from the university hospital where they had spent so many months together. She approached the adults, Phoenix following closely behind her. "What would happen to him?" she asked directly, her hand resting protectively on Phoenix's neck. "Would he still help with the children's program?" Dr. Hughes turned to her with genuine respect. "Actually, Sophie, that's partly why I wanted to speak with your parents. The facility we're proposing would be built right here, adjacent to the university hospital. We want to expand on everything that makes Phoenix's case so special, not just the medical research, but the hope he gives to patients." The plans Dr. Hughes shared were ambitious. The new facility would include state-of-the-art research laboratories, but also therapeutic riding areas and special observation rooms where cardiac patients could continue to visit and draw inspiration. From Phoenix's story, "We'd like you to be part of this, Sophie," Dr. Hughes continued. "Your understanding of Phoenix, your way of explaining his condition to young patients, it's unique. We want to develop an educational program based on your approach." Sophie's parents exchanged proud glances as their daughter considered this opportunity. At 12 years old, she had already contributed significantly to a groundbreaking medical discovery. Now she was being offered the chance to help shape its future applications. Construction of the new facility began within months, funded by a coalition of medical research organizations and private donors who recognized the potential impact of Phoenix's genetic discovery. Sophie worked with architects to design special viewing areas where children could safely observe and interact with the horses. As the facility took shape, Phoenix's genetic marker revealed more surprises. Dr. Hughes's team discovered that it wasn't just related to cardiac adaptation. It appeared to enhance overall cellular resilience. This explained why Phoenix had survived conditions that should have been fatal, and why his recovery had been so remarkable. His cells have an extraordinary capacity for repair and regeneration, Dr. Hughes explained during a presentation to medical students. It's as if they carry an enhanced survival protocol that activates under severe stress. The implications extended beyond cardiac medicine. Researchers began investigating applications for treating other conditions involving cellular damage and repair. Phoenix's genetic marker offered new possibilities for understanding how bodies could heal themselves in ways previously thought impossible. Emma, now thriving after her surgery, became a regular visitor to the construction site. She and Sophie would sit together, watching the buildings rise while discussing their hopes for the future. Emma had decided she wanted to become a doctor, inspired by how medical research had changed her life. "When I grow up," she declared one afternoon, "I want to help find more magic markers like Phoenix's. Maybe there are other special horses out there just waiting for someone to notice them." Her words sparked an idea in Sophie's mind. Working with Dr. Hughes and her parents, she developed a proposal for a screening program at horse auctions, looking for other animals that might carry similar genetic markers. The program would combine medical testing with rehabilitation, ensuring that no potentially valuable research subjects were overlooked due to their physical condition. Phoenix was almost lost because people only saw his weakness, Sophie explained to the research board. How many other horses might carry special genetic markers that could help us understand healing better? The proposal was approved, and soon the program began identifying other horses with unique genetic characteristics. While none carried exactly the same marker as Phoenix, each new discovery added to their understanding of genetic resilience and adaptation. Phoenix's story spread beyond medical circles, inspiring a children's book series about a special horse whose extraordinary heart helped doctors learn new ways to heal. Sophie contributed to the books, ensuring they balanced medical accuracy with messages of hope and perseverance. The facility's opening day arrived with great ceremony. Reporters gathered to document the ribbon cutting, but the real story was in the small moments, like when Emma gave tours to other cardiac patients, proudly explaining how Phoenix's special heart had helped doctors learn to help her heart. Sophie stood beside Phoenix in his new state-of-the-art stall, which included observation windows and monitoring equipment that would allow researchers to continue studying his unique characteristics while maintaining his comfort. The once skeletal horse now gleamed with health, his intelligent eyes bright as he surveyed his new home. "You know what amazes me most?" Dr. Hughes said, joining them. "Not just the medical breakthroughs, though those are extraordinary. It's how one child's ability to see beyond surface appearances has changed so many lives." Sophie smiled, remembering that day at the auction when everyone else had seen only a worthless horse. "Phoenix taught me that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones other people throw away," she replied. "Now we're making sure no one overlooks those possibilities again." The facility quickly became a beacon of hope in the medical community. Researchers and doctors came from around the world to study Phoenix's genetic marker and its implications for treatment. But equally important were the regular visits from cardiac patients and their families, drawing strength from the story of the extraordinary horse who had helped medicine understand new ways of healing. One evening, as sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, Sophie sat in Phoenix's stall writing in her journal. The entry wasn't about medical observations or genetic discoveries. It was about transformation, about how saving one life could ripple outward to save many more. Phoenix's gift wasn't just his special heart or his magical genetic marker, she wrote. It was teaching us to look deeper, to never give up hope, and to remember that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from believing in possibilities that others can't see. The morning sun cast long shadows across the new research facility as an unusual visitor made her way through the security checkpoint. Dr. Sarah Chen, head of pediatric genetic research at Boston Children's Hospital, carried a file that would add another extraordinary chapter to Phoenix's story. "We've identified something remarkable," Dr. Chen announced to the assembled research team. "A pattern in Phoenix's genetic marker that suggests it might be activated in other organisms under specific conditions." Sophie, who had arrived early for her morning routine with Phoenix, listened intently as Dr. Chen spread detailed genetic maps across the conference table. Over the past months, she had immersed herself in studying genetics, determined to understand every aspect of Phoenix's unique contribution to medical science. "Look at this sequence." Dr. Chen pointed to a highlighted section. "It's not just about cardiac adaptation. This marker appears to contain instructions for cellular regeneration that could be transferred through specialized treatment protocols." Dr. Hughes leaned forward, her eyes widening. "Are you suggesting we could potentially activate similar adaptive responses in patients who don't naturally carry the marker?" "Exactly," Dr. Chen nodded enthusiastically. "We've developed a theoretical framework for a treatment that could teach other cells to follow Phoenix's extraordinary adaptation patterns." The implications were staggering. If they could harness this mechanism, it could revolutionize treatment for not just cardiac conditions, but any disease involving cellular damage or deterioration. Sophie raised her hand, a habit from countless research briefings. Like teaching other hearts to be brave like phoenixes? Dr. Chen smiled warmly. That's a beautiful way to put it, Sophie. Yes, essentially, we're learning how to help other hearts find their own courage. The discovery led to a new phase of research, more complex and promising than anything they had anticipated. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, developing protocols to test Dr. Chen's theory. Phoenix's daily routine now included specialized scanning sessions, measuring how his remarkable cells responded to various stimuli. One afternoon, while monitoring Phoenix's response to a new testing protocol, Sophie noticed something unusual in his behavior. The horse, typically calm during procedures, showed signs of restlessness. "Something's wrong," she announced, recognizing subtle changes in his stance and eye movement that others might have missed. The medical team quickly discovered that one of their monitoring devices had malfunctioned, potentially affecting the test results. Sophie's attention to detail had prevented hours of invalid data collection. "You see him in ways we don't," Dr. Hughes commented later. "That's just as valuable as any scientific measurement." The incident led to the development of a new observation protocol, combining scientific monitoring with the kind of intuitive understanding Sophie had developed. Young patients visiting the facility began keeping their own observation journals, learning to notice and document subtle changes in both Phoenix and themselves. Emma, now a regular volunteer at the facility, took particular interest in this approach. "It's like being a detective," she explained to a new cardiac patient. "You have to look for clues about how hearts learn to be stronger." The research facility expanded its educational programs, creating specialized courses where medical students worked alongside young patients, learning to combine clinical observation with emotional intelligence. Phoenix's story became a case study in the importance of considering both the scientific and human elements of medical treatment. One morning, Dr. Chen arrived with groundbreaking news. Her team had successfully developed a prototype treatment based on Phoenix's genetic marker. The first trials would begin soon, offering hope to patients with previously untreatable conditions. "We're calling it the Phoenix Protocol," she announced, "a tribute to the horse who showed us what's possible when we refuse to accept limitations." Sophie's parents, watching their daughter absorb this latest development, marveled at how far they'd come from that day at the auction. Their 12-year-old had not only saved a horse, she had helped launch a medical revolution. The first human trials of the Phoenix Protocol began with a carefully selected group of patients, including several children with complex cardiac conditions. Sophie worked with the research team to develop child-friendly explanations of the treatment, using Phoenix's story to help young patients understand the complex procedures they would undergo. "Your cells are going to learn a new dance," she explained to a 7-year-old patient named Marcus, "just like Phoenix's heart learned new ways to keep him strong." The initial results exceeded everyone's expectations. Patients receiving the treatment showed remarkable improvements in cellular regeneration and adaptation. More importantly, their bodies maintained these improvements even after the treatment ended, suggesting permanent positive changes. As news of the treatment's success spread, the facility received visits from medical professionals worldwide. Sophie found herself sharing Phoenix's story with doctors from dozens of countries, each eager to understand not just the science, but the journey that had led to this breakthrough. One visitor, a cardiac surgeon from Japan, asked Sophie a question that made her think deeply about their journey. "What made you so sure that day at the auction that this horse was special?" Sophie stood beside Phoenix, her hand resting on his gleaming neck. "I didn't know he was special in this way," she answered thoughtfully. "I just knew he deserved a chance to show who he really was. Sometimes that's all anyone needs. Just one person who believes in them." The surgeon nodded, slowly. "Perhaps that is the real Phoenix protocol, the courage to see potential where others see only problems." The facility continued to evolve, adding new research programs and therapeutic services. Phoenix's genetic marker had opened doors no one had imagined possible, leading to treatments that combined cutting-edge science with the power of hope and determination. Emma, now fully recovered and pursuing her dream of becoming a doctor, often brought other cardiac patients to meet Phoenix. "See his eyes?" she would tell them. "That's what determination looks like. And now his special heart is helping all our hearts learn to be stronger." Sophie's journal entries from this period reflected the profound impact of their journey. "Phoenix didn't just teach us about genetics and cardiac adaptation," she wrote. "He taught us that every breakthrough starts with someone willing to believe in possibilities others can't see." As the sun set over the research facility, casting long shadows across the grounds, Sophie sat in Phoenix's stall, reflecting on how far they'd come. The once skeletal horse now stood proud and strong, his mere presence a testament to the power of faith and determination. Dr. Chen found her there, making her evening observations. "You know," the scientist said softly, "in medicine, we often focus on measurable results, data, statistics, clinical outcomes. But sometimes the most important breakthroughs come from something we can't measure, the courage to see potential in unexpected places." Sophie nodded, watching as Phoenix dozed peacefully. "That's why we need both, right? The science to understand how special things work, and the heart to recognize them in the first place." "Exactly," Dr. Chen smiled. "The Phoenix Protocol isn't just about genetic markers and cellular adaptation. It's about remembering that every medical breakthrough starts with someone willing to look past surface appearances and believe in possibilities." That night, as Sophie completed her daily observations, she added a special note to her journal. "Sometimes the bravest hearts are the ones that teach other hearts how to be brave too. And sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't found in laboratories or research papers, but in the moments when we choose to believe in something everyone else has given up on." The success of the Phoenix Protocol had drawn international attention, but it was an unexpected discovery in Phoenix's blood work that would open an entirely new chapter in their journey. Dr. Lisa Wong, a specialist in immunology, stood before the research team with results that left everyone stunned. "It's not just his cardiac cells that are extraordinary," she explained, pointing to complex charts displayed on the screen. "Phoenix's immune system shows unprecedented adaptive capabilities. His cells don't just repair themselves, they learn from every challenge they face." Sophie, who had developed a remarkable understanding of medical terminology for her age, leaned forward intently. "You mean his whole body is learning, not just his heart?" "Precisely," Dr. Wong nodded approvingly. "Think of it like a sophisticated defense system that gets stronger with each obstacle it encounters. This could revolutionize how we treat autoimmune disorders and other chronic conditions." The discovery led to a new series of research initiatives. Teams of immunologists and genetic specialists began studying how Phoenix's unique cellular adaptations could be applied to treating conditions previously thought untreatable. The implications for human medicine were staggering. One morning, while helping with Phoenix's daily health checks, Sophie met Lily, a 9-year-old girl with a rare autoimmune condition. Lily watched the procedures with keen interest, her small frame wrapped in a warm blanket against the morning chill. "Is it true his cells know how to fight better than normal cells?" Lily asked, her eyes bright with curiosity despite her fatigue. Sophie smiled, recognizing the hope in the young girl's voice. "They do. Phoenix's body learned to be strong in ways nobody expected. Now he's teaching doctors how to help other bodies do the same thing." The research facility expanded to include a new wing dedicated to immunology studies. Phoenix's daily routine now included specialized testing sessions that measured how his remarkable immune system responded to various challenges. Each new discovery added to their understanding of cellular resilience. Dr. Hughes worked closely with immunology experts to develop new treatment protocols based on Phoenix's unique adaptations. "What we're seeing here goes beyond traditional medical understanding," she explained during a research briefing. "Phoenix's cells don't just fight illness, they evolve and improve their response with each challenge. The implications of this discovery reaches far beyond the medical community. Environmental scientists began studying how Phoenix's adaptive capabilities might offer insights into biological resilience in a changing climate. Agricultural researchers explored applications for improving livestock health and resistance to disease. Sophie's role at the facility evolved as well. Her intuitive understanding of Phoenix's behavior and her ability to explain complex medical concepts in simple terms made her an invaluable bridge between the research team and young patients. She developed a program that combined scientific observation with storytelling, helping children understand their own treatment through Phoenix's journey. One afternoon, while working with a group of young patients, Sophie noticed something remarkable. Lily, who had begun receiving a treatment based on the Phoenix protocol, showed subtle signs of improvement that the medical monitors hadn't yet detected. "Her eyes are brighter," Sophie reported to Dr. Wong, "and she's holding herself differently, more like she did before her last setback." The observation proved crucial. Further testing confirmed that Lily's immune system was responding to the treatment in ways the standard metrics hadn't captured. This led to the development of new monitoring protocols that combined traditional medical measurements with observational data. "Sometimes the most important changes aren't visible on our charts," Dr. Wong acknowledged. "Sophie's ability to notice these subtle shifts has become an essential part of our research methodology." The facility's reputation continued to grow, attracting patients and researchers from around the world. But perhaps the most significant impact came from the hope it offered to those facing seemingly insurmountable medical challenges. Emma, now actively involved in the facility's youth education program, often shared her story alongside Phoenix's. "When doctors first told me about my heart condition, they focused on all the things I wouldn't be able to do," she told a group of young patients. "But Phoenix taught us that sometimes the things doctors say are impossible just haven't been discovered yet." The research team's understanding of Phoenix's unique capabilities deepened with each new study. They discovered that his cells possessed an extraordinary ability to adapt to stress, developing protective mechanisms that could be passed on to subsequent cell generations. It's like his body has created a biological instruction manual for survival, Dr. Chen explained during a presentation to visiting medical specialists. Each challenge he overcomes becomes a lesson that his cells remember and can teach to new cells. This discovery led to groundbreaking developments in regenerative medicine. The Phoenix Protocol evolved to include treatments that didn't just help patients fight illness, they helped their bodies learn to adapt and grow stronger. Lily became one of the first patients to receive the enhanced treatment protocol. Within months, her condition showed marked improvement. More importantly, her body began developing its own adaptive responses to challenges that had previously triggered severe reactions. "Phoenix taught my cells how to be brave," Lily explained to her doctors, echoing Sophie's way of describing the treatment. The phrase caught on, becoming a touchstone for patients undergoing the protocol. Sophie's journals from this period captured both the scientific breakthroughs and the human stories behind them. "Today, we learned that courage isn't just about fighting harder," she wrote. "Sometimes it's about learning new ways to be strong." The facility expanded its research to include studies on cellular memory and adaptation. They discovered that Phoenix's unique genetic marker didn't just affect individual cells. It created a kind of biological learning network that could adapt and evolve in response to challenges. This finding revolutionized their approach to treatment. Instead of just fighting disease, they began developing therapies that helped patients' bodies learn to adapt and heal in new ways. "What Phoenix has taught us," Dr. Hughes explained to a conference of international medical researchers, "is that the body's capacity for adaptation and healing goes far beyond what we previously imagined possible." The impact of these discoveries reached beyond medical science. Phoenix's story became a symbol of hope and resilience, inspiring people facing all kinds of challenges. The facility regularly received letters from around the world, sharing stories of how Phoenix's journey had given people the courage to face their own battles. One evening, as Sophie completed her daily observations, she found Dr. Wong studying Phoenix's latest test results with an expression of wonder. "You know what amazes me most," the immunologist said softly. "It's not just the scientific breakthroughs, though those are extraordinary. It's how this horse continues to teach us new ways to think about healing." Sophie nodded, watching as Phoenix dozed peacefully in his stall. "That's because he never forgot how to hope," she replied, even when everyone else had given up on him. The facility continued to evolve, adding new research programs and treatment protocols. But at its heart remained the simple truth that had started it all. The belief that sometimes the greatest medical breakthroughs come from being willing to see possibility where others see only problems. As the sun set over the research facility, casting long shadows across the grounds, Sophie sat with Phoenix, updating her observation journal. Her entries now included not just medical data, but stories of hope and transformation, each one a testament to the extraordinary journey that had begun with a child's determination to believe in a horse that everyone else had forgotten. "Phoenix didn't just teach us about healing," she wrote. "He taught us that every challenge can become an opportunity to grow stronger, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is believe in possibilities that others can't see." The legacy of the Phoenix Protocol continued to grow, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted that day at the auction. But for Sophie, the most important lesson remained unchanged, that sometimes the greatest miracles start with simply being willing to give hope a chance. The research facility's latest breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a young neuroscientist named Dr. Marcus Reed, who noticed something extraordinary in Phoenix's latest brain scans. The discovery would open an entirely new frontier in their understanding of healing and adaptation. "Look at these neural pathways," Dr. Reed explained, pointing to complex imagery displayed across the lab's monitors. "Phoenix's brain has developed connections that we've never seen before. It's as if his nervous system has created its own network of resilience." Sophie, now 13 and increasingly versed in neuroscience, studied the scans with intense interest. The images showed intricate patterns of neural activity that seemed to dance across the screen, telling a story of adaptation that went beyond mere survival. "These connections," Dr. Reed continued, "appear to be coordinating his body's remarkable healing responses. His brain isn't just sending signals, it's orchestrating a symphony of cellular regeneration." The discovery sparked a new phase of research, focusing on the connection between neural plasticity and physical healing. Teams of neurologists joined the facility's growing roster of specialists, each bringing new perspectives to understanding Phoenix's extraordinary capabilities. "It's like his brain created a master blueprint for healing," Dr. Hughes marveled during a research briefing, "one that could potentially be mapped and translated for human applications." The implications were revolutionary. If they could understand how Phoenix's neural networks coordinated his body's adaptive responses, they might be able to develop treatments that helped human brains do the same. One morning, while helping with Phoenix's neural monitoring session, Sophie met Nathan, a 14-year-old boy recovering from a traumatic brain injury. Despite his challenges, Nathan's eyes lit up with curiosity as he watched the scanning process. "Can you explain what those lights mean?" he asked, pointing to the activity patterns on the monitor. Sophie smiled, settling into her familiar role of bridging complex science with understandable explanations. "Those lights show how Phoenix's brain talks to the rest of his body. See how they create patterns? That's his brain teaching his body new ways to heal." Nathan's physiotherapist, Dr. Sarah Lynn, listened with growing interest. "That's actually a beautiful way to think about neural rehabilitation," she commented. "The brain learning new pathways to accomplish what the old ones can't." This conversation sparked an innovative collaboration between the neurology and physical therapy departments. They began developing therapeutic approaches that combined Phoenix's neural mapping with rehabilitation techniques, creating programs that helped patients' brains forge new pathways to recovery. The facility added a specialized rehabilitation wing, where patients worked with therapists while monitoring their neural activity patterns. The goal was to help them visualize and understand their brain's healing process, just as Sophie had helped them understand Phoenix's journey. Nathan became one of the first participants in this new program. Using technology developed from studying Phoenix's neural patterns, he could watch in real time as his brain created new connections during therapy sessions. "It's like having a GPS for healing," he explained to Sophie during one of their regular conversations. "Seeing the paths my brain is creating helps me believe they're really there." The program's success led to the development of what they called neural navigation therapy, a groundbreaking approach that combined physical rehabilitation with real-time neural feedback. Patients could literally watch their brains adapt and learn, drawing inspiration from Phoenix's example of extraordinary healing. Dr. Reed worked closely with the rehabilitation team to refine and expand the therapy's applications. What we're learning from Phoenix isn't just about physical healing, he explained during a presentation to medical students. It's about understanding the brain's incredible capacity for reinvention. The facility's reputation continued to grow, attracting patients and researchers interested in this revolutionary approach to rehabilitation. But perhaps the most significant impact came from the hope it offered to those facing seemingly insurmountable neurological challenges. Emma, now an active participant in the facility's peer support program, often shared her perspective on this new development. Phoenix didn't just teach us about hearts, she told a group of young patients. He taught us that our whole bodies can learn new ways to be strong, even our brains. The research team's understanding of Phoenix's neural capabilities deepened. With each new study, they discovered that his brain didn't just create new pathways, it actively adapted its communication strategies based on his body's needs. It's like having a biological supercomputer dedicated to healing, Dr. Reed explained during a research briefing. One that learns and evolves with each new challenge. This discovery led to groundbreaking developments in neurological treatment. The Phoenix protocol expanded to include therapies that helped patients' brains develop similar adaptive capabilities, opening new possibilities for treating everything from stroke recovery to neurodegenerative conditions. Sophie's role at the facility evolved to include working with the neurology team, helping them understand the subtle behavioral changes that often preceded measurable neural adaptations. Her ability to notice and document these changes became an invaluable part of their research methodology. One afternoon, while observing Phoenix during a neural mapping session, Sophie noticed something remarkable. The horse's brain activity patterns changed subtly when young patients were nearby, suggesting an empathetic response that no one had previously documented. It's like he knows they need encouragement, she reported to Dr. Reed. His neural patterns shift to a calmer, more supportive rhythm. This observation led to new research into the relationship between emotional connection and neural adaptation. They discovered that Phoenix's brain didn't just adapt for his own healing. It seemed to respond to and support the healing processes of those around him. The facility began incorporating this understanding into their treatment programs, creating environments that fostered both physical and emotional healing. Patients worked not just on their own recovery, but on supporting and encouraging each other's progress. Nathan's recovery exemplified the success of this approach. As he progressed through his rehabilitation, he began helping newer patients understand their neural feedback sessions, sharing his insights and experiences. Phoenix showed us that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, he explained to a young stroke survivor. It's about discovering new ways to be whole. The impact of these discoveries extended beyond the medical community. Educators began exploring applications for learning disabilities, using insights from Phoenix's neural adaptation patterns to develop new teaching strategies. One evening, as Sophie completed her daily observations, she found Dr. Reed studying Phoenix's latest neural scans with an expression of wonder. "You know what's truly extraordinary?" he mused. It's not just the complexity of his neural adaptations, it's how his brain seems to have developed an instinct for healing, not just for himself, but for others too. Sophie nodded, watching, as Phoenix interacted gently with a group of young patients. Maybe that's because healing isn't just about biology, she suggested. It's about believing in possibilities and helping others believe too. As the research facility continued to expand its understanding of neural adaptation and healing, Phoenix's legacy grew in unexpected ways. His story wasn't just about medical breakthroughs anymore. It was about understanding the profound connection between physical healing and emotional resilience. The sun set over the facility, casting warm light through the observation windows. Sophie sat with her journal, reflecting on how far they'd come from that day at the auction. Phoenix taught us that every brain has its own way of finding hope, she wrote. Sometimes we just need to believe in the power of new beginnings. The evening ended with a new group of patients arriving for their neural feedback sessions, each carrying their own hopes for healing and renewal. And in his special stall, Phoenix stood watch over them all, his extraordinary brain continuing to teach doctors and patients alike about the endless possibilities of healing and adaptation. The research facility buzzed with unprecedented excitement. One crisp autumn morning, as Dr. Maya Patel, a pioneering expert in regenerative medicine, unveiled a discovery that would add yet another extraordinary dimension to Phoenix's legacy. We've identified something remarkable in Phoenix's stem cells, Dr. Patel announced, her eyes bright with enthusiasm as she addressed the assembled research team. They possess unique properties that allow them to adapt and transform in ways we've never seen before. Sophie, who had recently begun taking advanced biology courses to better understand the facility's research, leaned forward intently. The digital displays showed microscopic images of cells that seemed to shimmer with an almost ethereal quality. These cells don't just regenerate, Dr. Patel explained, pointing to a time-lapse sequence. They appear to communicate with surrounding tissue, actually teaching other cells how to heal more effectively. This revelation opened an entirely new frontier in regenerative medicine. Phoenix's stem cells didn't simply replace damaged tissue. They appeared to establish networks of healing that continued long after the initial treatment. It's like they're creating healing communities, Sophie observed, watching the cellular interaction patterns. Her ability to frame complex scientific concepts in accessible terms had become invaluable to the research team. Dr. Patel nodded approvingly. Exactly. These cells act as teachers, showing the body's own cells how to repair and regenerate more effectively. The implications were staggering. Initial trials suggested that treatments developed from Phoenix's stem cell research could potentially help patients with conditions ranging from spinal cord injuries to degenerative diseases. Among the first to benefit from this breakthrough was Michael, a 16-year-old swimmer who had suffered a severe spinal injury in a diving accident. Previously told he might never walk again, Michael became one of the first recipients of the new stem cell protocol. The cells aren't just repairing the damage, Dr. Patel explained during one of Michael's treatment sessions. They're teaching his body how to continue the healing process on its own. Sophie spent time with Michael during his rehabilitation, sharing Phoenix's story and helping him understand the extraordinary cells that were aiding his recovery. Phoenix teaches us that healing isn't just about getting better, she told him. It's about discovering strength you never knew you had. The facility expanded to include a new regenerative medicine wing, where patients receive treatments derived from Phoenix's remarkable stem cell research. Each success story added to their understanding of cellular healing and adaptation. One morning, while observing Phoenix's latest stem cell collection procedure, Sophie noticed something intriguing. The cells seem more active when there's music. "They're playing in the lab," she reported to Dr. Patel. This observation led to a fascinating study on the influence of environmental factors on cellular behavior. They discovered that Phoenix's stem cells appeared to respond to various external stimuli, adapting their regenerative properties accordingly. "It's as if these cells have developed their own form of environmental awareness," Dr. Patel marveled. "They don't just heal, they respond and adapt to create optimal conditions for recovery." The research team began incorporating these findings into their treatment protocols, developing therapies that combined stem cell treatment with carefully curated environmental factors to enhance healing. Michael's recovery demonstrated the potential of this approach. As his rehabilitation progressed, he began showing improvement beyond what traditional stem cell treatments typically achieved. "It's like my body is learning a new language of healing," he explained during a progress review. The success of the stem cell program attracted attention from regenerative medicine specialists worldwide. But perhaps more importantly, it offered hope to patients who had previously been told their conditions were beyond help. Sophie worked closely with the research team to document the subtle changes in patients receiving the new treatments. Her journals now included detailed observations about how different environmental factors affected healing responses. "Sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest difference," she wrote, after watching a young patient respond dramatically to a modified treatment protocol. "Just like Phoenix showed us that strength can come from unexpected places." The facility's understanding of cellular regeneration continued to evolve. They discovered that Phoenix's stem cells possessed an extraordinary ability to adapt their healing properties based on the specific needs of each patient. "These cells don't just repair damage," Dr. Patel explained during a presentation to visiting scientists. "They seem to analyze the body's needs and develop targeted healing strategies." This discovery led to the development of personalized, regenerative therapies, treatments tailored to each patient's unique condition and healing requirements. The success rates of these customized protocols exceeded all expectations. Emily, a 12-year-old patient with a rare degenerative condition, became one of the first recipients of this personalized approach. "The cells know exactly what my body needs," she explained to Sophie during one of their regular conversations. "It's like having millions of tiny healers working together." The impact of Phoenix's stem cell research extended beyond individual patient care. The research team began exploring applications for environmental restoration, studying how these remarkable cells might help heal damaged ecosystems. One evening, as Sophie completed her observations, she found Dr. Patel studying cellular interaction patterns with fascination. "You know what's truly remarkable?" the scientist mused. "These cells don't just heal, they teach other cells how to be resilient. It's like they're passing on Phoenix's legacy at a cellular level." Sophie nodded, watching as Phoenix dozed peacefully in his stall. "He's still teaching us," she replied. "Every cell, every discovery, shows us new ways to believe in healing." The research facility continued to expand its understanding of cellular regeneration and adaptation, but at its heart remained the simple truth that had started it all. The belief that sometimes the greatest medical breakthroughs come from being willing to see possibility where others see only limitations. As twilight settled over the facility, Sophie sat with her journal, reflecting on this latest chapter in Phoenix's extraordinary journey. Today we learned that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, she wrote. It's about teaching our bodies to remember their own strength, one cell at a time. The evening ended with a new group of patients beginning their personalized treatments, each carrying their own hopes for healing and renewal. And in his special stall, Phoenix stood watch over them all, his remarkable cells continuing to teach the world about the endless possibilities of regeneration and hope. Dr. Patel joined Sophie for her evening observations, both of them watching as the sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors. "You know," the scientist said thoughtfully, "in all my years of research, I've never seen cells quite like these. They don't just heal, they inspire healing in others." Sophie smiled, remembering that day at the auction when everyone else had seen only weakness. "That's because they came from a heart that never forgot how to hope," she replied, "and now they're teaching other hearts to remember too." The legacy of Phoenix's stem cell breakthrough continued to grow, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. But for Sophie, the most important lesson remained unchanged, that sometimes the greatest miracles start with simply being willing to give hope a chance, one cell at a time. A revolutionary breakthrough emerged at the research facility when Dr. Emilia Santos, a specialist in epigenetics, made a stunning discovery about Phoenix's DNA that would transform their understanding of genetic adaptation. "These markers aren't just unique," Dr. Santos explained, gesturing to the complex genetic maps displayed across the laboratory screens. "They're actively evolving, creating new patterns of adaptation that we've never seen before in any species." Sophie, now deeply immersed in genetic studies as part of her accelerated science program, studied the intricate patterns with growing excitement. The display showed Phoenix's genetic code literally rewriting itself in response to environmental challenges. "It's like his DNA has developed its own form of intelligence," Dr. Santos continued, highlighting specific sequences. "These adaptations aren't random mutations, they're targeted responses to specific challenges." This discovery opened an entirely new chapter in genetic research. Phoenix's DNA wasn't just carrying information, it was actively learning and adapting, creating solutions to problems that should have been beyond its capabilities. The implications reached far beyond medical science. Environmental researchers began studying how this adaptive genetic mechanism might help species survive in changing climates. Agricultural scientists explored applications for developing more resilient crops. Among those most excited by the discovery was 14-year-old Zara, a young climate activist who had been following Phoenix's story. She saw in this genetic breakthrough hope for endangered species facing environmental challenges. "If we could understand how Phoenix's DNA learns to adapt," she argued during a visit to the facility, "maybe we could help other species develop similar resilience." Dr. Santos recognized the potential in Zara's suggestion. Working with environmental scientists, they began studying how Phoenix's adaptive genetic mechanisms might be applied to conservation efforts. The facility expanded to include an environmental research wing, where scientists studied the implications of phoenix's genetic adaptability for ecosystem resilience. Each new discovery suggested possibilities for helping species adapt to environmental changes. Sophie spent time working with both the medical and environmental teams, helping them understand the connections between individual healing and ecosystem health. Phoenix shows us that adaptation isn't just about survival, she explained during a presentation. It's about finding new ways to thrive. The research team made another breakthrough when they discovered that Phoenix's genetic adaptations could be influenced by emotional and social factors. His DNA showed different patterns of adaptation when he was interacting with young patients compared to during standard medical procedures. It's as if his genetic code responds to purpose, not just necessity, Dr. Santos explained. These adaptations aren't just about survival, they're about connection and healing. This understanding led to new approaches in both medical treatment and environmental conservation. The team began developing programs that combined genetic adaptation with emotional and social support, creating more holistic approaches to healing and resilience. Zara worked with the research team to develop educational programs that helped young people understand the connection between individual health and environmental adaptation. Phoenix teaches us that everything is connected, she explained to a group of visiting students. When we heal one thing, we help heal everything. The facility's work with genetic adaptation attracted attention from researchers worldwide. But perhaps more importantly, it offered hope for addressing some of the world's most pressing environmental challenges. Sophie's role expanded to include working with both medical patients and environmental projects. Her journals now documented not just individual healing stories, but the broader implications of Phoenix's genetic legacy. Today, we learned that adaptation isn't just about changing to survive, she wrote after a particularly successful experiment. It's about finding new ways to help others thrive, too. The research team's understanding of genetic adaptation continued to evolve. They discovered that Phoenix's DNA didn't just adapt to challenges, it seemed to anticipate them, developing protective mechanisms before they were needed. These genetic patterns show a level of predictive adaptation we've never seen before, Dr. Santos explained during a conference presentation. It's as if his DNA has developed a form of genetic foresight. This discovery led to new approaches in preventive medicine and environmental protection. The team began developing programs that helped both patients and ecosystems build resilience before facing challenges. The impact of Phoenix's genetic research extended beyond scientific circles. His story inspired a new generation of young scientists and environmentalists who saw in his remarkable adaptation hope for addressing global challenges. One evening, as Sophie completed her observations, she found Dr. Santos studying genetic sequences with renewed wonder. "You know what truly amazes me?" the scientist mused. "These adaptations don't just protect, they nurture. It's like Phoenix's DNA has developed an instinct for healing that extends beyond itself." Sophie nodded, watching as Phoenix interacted gently with a group of young environmental science students. "Maybe that's because true healing isn't just about fixing problems," she suggested. "It's about creating new possibilities for life to flourish." The facility continued to expand its understanding of genetic adaptation and resilience. But at its heart remained the simple truth that had started it all. The belief that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come from being willing to see possibility where others see only limitations. As the sun set over the facility, Sophie sat with her journal, reflecting on this latest chapter in Phoenix's extraordinary journey. Today we learned that adaptation isn't just about changing to survive, she wrote. It's about finding new ways to help all life thrive. The evening ended with a new group of researchers beginning their studies, each carrying their own hopes for understanding and protecting life's remarkable capacity for adaptation. And in his special stall, Phoenix stood watch over them all, his extraordinary genes continuing to teach the world about the endless possibilities of evolution and hope. Dr. Santos joined Sophie for her evening observations, both of them watching, as young visitors shared their dreams for healing both people and planets. "You know," the scientist said thoughtfully, "in all my years of genetic research, I've never seen anything quite like this. These adaptations don't just protect, they inspire." Sophie smiled, remembering that day at the auction when everyone else had seen only weakness. "That's because they came from a heart that never forgot how to hope," she replied, "and now they're teaching other hearts to remember too." The legacy of Phoenix's genetic breakthrough continued to grow, touching lives and ecosystems in ways no one could have predicted. But for Sophie, the most important lesson remained unchanged, that sometimes the greatest miracles start with simply being willing to give hope a chance, one gene at a time. As night fell over the research facility, the stars seemed to shine. With renewed promise, in his stall, Phoenix rested peacefully, his extraordinary DNA continuing its work of adaptation and healing. And in her journal, Sophie wrote one final note. "Today we discovered that every living thing carries within it the potential for extraordinary adaptation. Sometimes all it takes is one heart brave enough to believe in possibilities that others can't see." The research facility's latest revelation came through Dr. Rachel Morrison, a specialist in quantum biology, who discovered something extraordinary about Phoenix's cellular energy patterns that would challenge the very foundations of biological science. "These energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever recorded," Dr. Morrison announced, pointing to complex quantum measurements displayed across the laboratory's holographic screens. Phoenix's cells appear to be utilizing quantum coherence in ways that shouldn't be possible in biological systems. Sophie, now 14 and increasingly fascinated by the intersection of physics and biology, watched the bizarre patterns dance across the screens. The displays showed energy fields that seemed to connect Phoenix's cells across impossible distances, creating what Dr. Morrison called quantum bridges of healing. "It's not just cellular communication," Dr. Morrison explained, highlighting specific energy patterns. "These quantum interactions appear to be coordinating healing responses across his entire body instantaneously. It's as if his cells are connected in ways that transcend normal space-time limitations." This discovery opened an entirely new dimension in medical research. Phoenix's cells weren't just communicating through conventional biological pathways. They were utilizing quantum principles to create instantaneous healing networks throughout his body. The implications were mind-boggling. If they could understand and harness these quantum healing mechanisms, it could revolutionize medicine's approach to treating complex conditions that required coordinated cellular responses. Lucas, a 15-year-old physics prodigy who had been following Phoenix's case, became one of the first to grasp the potential implications. If cells can maintain quantum coherence at biological temperatures, he explained during a visit to the facility, it could change everything we know about healing. Dr. Morrison recognized the brilliance in Lucas's insights and invited him to join their research team as a student observer. Together they began exploring how Phoenix's quantum cellular networks might be replicated or stimulated in other organisms. The facility expanded to include a quantum biology research center, where scientists studied the mysterious ways Phoenix's cells utilized quantum effects for healing. Each new discovery suggested possibilities that seemed to belong more to science fiction than medical research. Sophie worked closely with both Lucas and the research team, helping them bridge the gap between quantum theory and practical healing applications. Phoenix shows us that healing doesn't follow ordinary rules, she explained during a presentation. Sometimes it takes a quantum leap of faith. The breakthrough moment came when they discovered that Phoenix's quantum cellular networks could be influenced by conscious intention. His cells showed different quantum patterns when he was actively engaging with patients compared to during routine examinations. It's as if his quantum networks respond to purpose, Dr. Morrison explained. These aren't just random quantum effects. They're coordinated responses that seem to be influenced by emotional and intentional states. This understanding led to revolutionary new approaches in treatment. The team began developing therapies that combined quantum cellular stimulation with focused healing intention, creating treatments that worked on both physical and quantum levels. Lucas worked with the research team to develop methods for visualizing and measuring these quantum healing networks. Phoenix teaches us that connection goes deeper than we imagined, he explained to visiting scientists. Healing isn't just physical, it's quantum. The implications of quantum healing networks attracted attention from quantum physicists and medical researchers worldwide. But perhaps more importantly, it offered new hope for treating conditions that had previously seemed beyond medicine's reach. Sophie's role expanded to include documenting the subtle relationships between emotional states and quantum healing patterns. Her journals now captured not just observable changes, but the invisible quantum dance of healing. Today we learned that healing transcends ordinary space and time, she wrote, after witnessing a particularly remarkable quantum response. Sometimes the strongest connections are the ones we can't see. The research team's understanding of quantum biology continued to evolve. They discovered that Phoenix's quantum networks didn't just connect cells within his own body. They seemed capable of establishing temporary quantum bridges with patients during healing interactions. These quantum connections appear to create shared healing spaces, Dr. Morrison explained during a breakthrough presentation. It's as if Phoenix's cells can teach other organisms' cells how to establish their own quantum healing networks. This discovery led to new approaches in treatment that focused on establishing and strengthening quantum healing connections. The team began developing protocols that helped patients' cells learn to create their own quantum networks. The impact of Phoenix's quantum biology research reached beyond medicine. Quantum physicists began studying how biological systems might maintain quantum coherence at room temperature, while spiritual healers found scientific validation for ancient healing practices. One evening, as Sophie completed her observations, she found Dr. Morrison and Lucas studying quantum field measurements with amazement. "You know what's truly extraordinary?" Dr. Morrison mused. "These quantum networks don't just heal, they connect. It's like Phoenix's cells have discovered a way to share healing across the quantum realm." Sophie nodded, watching as Phoenix interacted with a group of young patients. "Maybe that's because true healing isn't just about fixing what's broken," she suggested. "It's about remembering that we're all connected at the deepest levels." The facility continued to expand its understanding of quantum healing networks, but at its heart remained the simple truth that had started it all. The belief that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come from being willing to see connections that others think impossible. As twilight settled over the facility, Sophie sat with her journal, reflecting on this latest chapter in Phoenix's extraordinary journey. "Today we learned that healing isn't limited by ordinary physics," she wrote. "Sometimes the most powerful medicine is the connection we can't see, but can feel in our hearts." The evening ended with a new group of patients beginning quantum network therapy, each carrying their own hopes for healing that transcended ordinary limitations. And in his special stall, Phoenix stood watch over them all, his extraordinary cells continuing to teach the world about the endless possibilities of quantum healing. Dr. Morrison joined Sophie for her evening observations, both of them watching the quantum field displays dance with mysterious patterns. "You know," the scientist said thoughtfully, "in all my years of quantum research, I've never seen anything quite like this. These networks don't just heal. They transform our understanding of what's possible." Sophie smiled, remembering that day at the auction when everyone else had seen only limitations. "That's because they came from a heart that never forgot how to hope," she replied. "And now they're teaching other hearts to remember too." The legacy of Phoenix's quantum breakthrough continued to grow, touching lives in ways that transcended ordinary understanding. But for Sophie, the most important lesson remained unchanged, that sometimes the greatest miracles start with simply being willing to believe in connections that others can't see. As night fell over the research facility, the quantum field displays pulsed with mysterious rhythms. In his stall, Phoenix rested peacefully, his extraordinary cells continuing their quantum dance of healing. And in her journal, Sophie wrote one final note. "Today we discovered that every heart carries within it the potential for quantum healing. Sometimes all it takes is one brave soul willing to believe in connections that transcend ordinary reality." Dr. Samira Khan, a pioneer in biomechanical engineering, arrived at the research facility early one morning with news that would add yet another extraordinary dimension to Phoenix's legacy. Her team had discovered something remarkable in the structure of Phoenix's muscle and bone tissue that defied conventional understanding of biological mechanics. "Look at these tissue samples," Dr. Khan directed, pointing to highly detailed holographic projections. "Phoenix's musculoskeletal system has developed what we can only describe as adaptive biomechanics. His tissues actually reconfigure themselves to create optimal strength and flexibility based on need." Sophie, who had recently begun exploring the principles of bioengineering, studied the complex structural patterns with fascination. The displays showed Phoenix's tissues transforming at a molecular level, creating perfectly balanced systems that maximized both strength and efficiency. "His body isn't just healing or adapting," Dr. Khan explained, highlighting specific structural changes. It's literally redesigning itself to create ideal biomechanical solutions. We've never seen anything like this in nature. This discovery opened entirely new possibilities in regenerative medicine and prosthetic design. Phoenix's tissues weren't just repairing themselves, they were continuously evolving to create better, more efficient structural solutions. The implications were particularly significant for young patients with mobility challenges. 15-year-old Alex, a promising athlete who had lost his left leg in an accident, became one of the first to benefit from this breakthrough. What if we could create prosthetics that learn and adapt like Phoenix's tissues? Alex suggested. During a visit to the facility, his eyes sparkled with hope as he watched the biomechanical demonstrations. Prosthetics that grow and change with us? Dr. Khan saw the potential in Alex's vision. Working with a team of bioengineers, they began developing what they called adaptive prosthetics, artificial limbs inspired by Phoenix's remarkable tissue. Adaptability. The facility expanded to include a biomechanical research and development center where scientists and engineers worked to understand and replicate Phoenix's extraordinary structural adaptations. Each discovery suggested new possibilities for helping patients regain not just mobility, but natural, adaptive movement. Sophie spent time working with both the research team and the patients, helping them understand how Phoenix's biomechanical innovations might transform their lives. It's not just about replacing what's lost, she explained during a demonstration. It's about creating something that can grow and adapt with you. The breakthrough came when they discovered that Phoenix's biomechanical adaptations weren't just reactive, they were anticipatory. His tissues would begin adapting to new movement patterns before they were needed, creating perfect balance and support. It's as if his body has developed a kind of structural intelligence, Dr. Khan explained. These adaptations aren't just responses to stress, they're thoughtful solutions that anticipate future needs. This understanding led to revolutionary approaches in prosthetic design and rehabilitation. The team began developing prosthetics that could learn from their users' movement patterns, adapting and evolving to provide increasingly natural motion. Alex worked closely with the research team, testing prototypes and providing valuable feedback that helped refine the technology. Phoenix shows us that adaptation isn't just about compensation, he shared with other young patients. It's about finding new ways to move forward. The impact of these biomechanical discoveries extended beyond prosthetics. The principles they learned from Phoenix's adaptive tissues began influencing everything from sports medicine to architectural design. Sophie's role expanded to include documenting the relationship between emotional state and biomechanical adaptation. She noticed that Phoenix's structural changes seemed more efficient when he was motivated by helping others. Today we learned that even our physical structure responds to purpose, she wrote, after observing a particularly remarkable adaptation. Our bodies become stronger when we're moving towards something meaningful. The research team's understanding of biomechanical adaptation continued to deepen. They discovered that Phoenix's structural changes weren't limited to his own tissues. His presence seemed to somehow encourage adaptive responses in patients he worked with. These biomechanical influences appear to be collaborative, Dr. Khan explained during a research presentation. It's as if Phoenix's tissues are teaching other bodies how to find their own optimal adaptations. This discovery led to new approaches in physical therapy that focused on stimulating patients' natural adaptive capabilities. The team developed programs that helped people tap into their body's inherent wisdom for creating efficient, graceful movement. The implications reached beyond medicine into sports science and human performance. Athletes began studying Phoenix's biomechanical principles to understand how they might optimize their own movement patterns. One evening, as Sophie completed her observations, she found Dr. Khan and Alex analyzing movement data with excitement. "You know what's truly amazing?" Dr. Khan mused. "These adaptations don't just create strength, they create harmony. It's like Phoenix's body has discovered the perfect balance between power and grace." Sophie nodded, watching as Phoenix moved with fluid elegance despite his size. "Maybe that's because true strength isn't just about power," she suggested. "It's about finding the most beautiful way to move through challenges." The facility continued to expand its understanding of biomechanical adaptation, but at its heart remained the simple truth that had started it all, the belief that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come from being willing to see possibilities that others think impossible. As the sun set over the facility, Sophie sat with her journal, reflecting on this latest chapter in Phoenix's extraordinary journey. "Today, we learned that our bodies know more about healing than we ever imagined," she wrote. "Sometimes we just need to trust their wisdom and let them show us new ways to move forward." The evening ended with a new group of patients working with their adaptive prosthetics, each discovering new possibilities for movement and expression. And in his special stall, Phoenix stood watch over them all, his extraordinary tissues continuing to teach the world about the endless possibilities of structural adaptation. Dr. Khan joined Sophie for her evening observations, both of them watching as young patients discovered new ways to move with confidence and joy. "You know," the scientist said thoughtfully, "in all my years of biomechanical research, I've never seen anything quite like this. These adaptations don't just create function, they create freedom." Sophie smiled, remembering that day at the auction when everyone else had seen only limitations. "That's because they came from a heart that never forgot how to hope," she replied. "And now they're teaching other hearts and bodies to remember too." The legacy of Phoenix's biomechanical breakthrough continued to grow, transforming lives in ways that transcended ordinary expectations. But for Sophie, the most important lesson remained unchanged. That sometimes the greatest miracles start with simply being willing to believe in possibilities that others can't see. As night settled over the research facility, the movement analysis displays showed the elegant patterns of perfect adaptation. In his stall, Phoenix rested peacefully, his extraordinary tissues continuing their dance of structural harmony. And in her journal, Sophie wrote one final note. "Today we discovered that every body carries within it the wisdom of perfect movement. Sometimes all it takes is one brave soul willing to show us how to trust that wisdom and dance with life's challenges." On a bright spring morning, 5 years after Sophie first rescued Phoenix from the auction, the research facility prepared to host its most significant event yet, the first International Conference on Integrative Adaptive Medicine. Scientists, doctors, and patients from around the world gathered to celebrate and share the countless breakthroughs that had stemmed from one horse's extraordinary journey. Dr. Sarah Bennett, Sophie's mother, stood at the podium, addressing the packed auditorium. When my daughter brought home a skeletal horse from a rural auction, I never imagined we were witnessing the beginning of a medical revolution. But sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come from listening to the wisdom of a child's heart. The facility had grown into a sprawling campus, its various research centers connected by gardens where patients could interact with Phoenix and other horses that had been rescued through the screening program Sophie had helped establish. Each garden was designed to promote different aspects of healing: physical, emotional, and spiritual. Sophie, now 16 and already taking advanced courses at the local university, led tours through the facility's various departments. She had grown into a poised young woman, but her eyes still held the same determined spark that had led her to save Phoenix that fateful day. "Every discovery we've made here started with a simple truth," she explained to a group of visiting medical students. "That healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, it's about awakening the extraordinary potential that exists within every living thing." The conference showcased the remarkable developments that had emerged from studying Phoenix, from his quantum cellular networks to his adaptive biomechanics, from his regenerative stem cells to his evolving genetic markers. Each discovery had spawned new fields of research and treatment. But perhaps the most powerful presentations came from the patients themselves. Emma, now a pre-med student, shared how the Phoenix Protocol had not only healed her heart, but inspired her career choice. Michael, the swimmer who had regained mobility through stem cell treatment, demonstrated advanced athletic movements that should have been impossible after his injury. Zara, the young environmental activist, presented findings on how principles learned from Phoenix's adaptive capabilities were being applied to help endangered species survive climate change. Alex showcased the latest generation of adaptive prosthetics, performing dance movements that brought tears to the audience's eyes. Dr. Hughes, who had been with the project since its early days, introduced a new initiative that would carry Phoenix's legacy even further. Today, we're announcing the establishment of the Phoenix Global Health Network, a consortium of research facilities and treatment centers that will make these breakthrough therapies available worldwide. The announcement was met with thunderous applause, but for Sophie, the most meaningful moment came later that afternoon. In a quiet corner of the therapeutic gardens, she found Lily, the young girl with the autoimmune condition who had been one of their first patients, teaching a group of children about cellular healing. "You see," Lily explained, drawing patterns, "in the soil with a stick, our cells are like stars in a constellation. They all know how to shine. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them how." Sophie watched, remembering how far they'd come from those early days when Phoenix's unusual heart rhythm had first caught their attention. Each discovery had led to another, creating a tapestry of healing that had transformed countless lives. The conference culminated in an evening ceremony where Phoenix himself made an appearance. The once skeletal horse now moved with regal grace, his coat gleaming in the sunset light. But it was his eyes that captured everyone's attention. They held the same quiet wisdom that Sophie had recognized that day at the auction. "Phoenix has taught us that miracles don't just happen," Sophie addressed the gathered crowd. "They're born when we refuse to accept limitations, when we dare to see possibility where others see only problems." Dr. Morrison joined her at the podium, adding her perspective as a quantum biologist. "What we've learned from Phoenix goes beyond medical science. His extraordinary adaptations show us that healing isn't just a physical process. It's a reminder of our fundamental interconnectedness. The facility had become more than a research center. It was a beacon of hope, a place where the boundaries between science and miracles blurred, where the impossible became possible every day. As the ceremony concluded, patients and doctors alike shared stories of transformation. Each narrative added another thread to the tapestry of healing that had begun with one girl's determination to save a horse that everyone else had dismissed. Later that evening, as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant colors, Sophie sat in Phoenix's special garden, updating her journal. The horse dozed peacefully nearby, his presence as comforting as ever. 5 years ago, she wrote, I made a promise to a horse that no one else wanted. I promised him that we would prove them all wrong. But Phoenix did more than prove them wrong. He showed us that healing is about more than medicine. It's about believing in the extraordinary potential that exists within every heart, every cell, every moment. Dr. Chen, who had followed Phoenix's case from the beginning, found them there. You know what amazes me most? She mused, settling beside Sophie. It's not just the medical breakthroughs, though those are remarkable. It's how one act of compassion created ripples that transformed the entire field of medicine. Sophie nodded, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Phoenix taught us that every ending can be a beginning, she replied. We just have to be brave enough to believe in new possibilities. The research facility continued to grow, its innovations touching more lives every day. But at its heart remained the simple truth that had started it all, the belief that sometimes the greatest healers are the ones that everyone else overlooks. As night settled over the campus, patients and doctors gathered in the gardens for an evening of storytelling and celebration. Each person there carried within them a piece of Phoenix's legacy, not just in the treatments that had helped heal their bodies, but in the hope that had transformed their hearts. Young patients shared their dreams of becoming doctors. Researchers spoke of new frontiers yet to explore, and in every voice was the echo of possibility that Phoenix had awakened in them all. Sophie's final journal entry for the day captured the essence of their journey. Today, we celebrate not just medical breakthroughs, but the power of believing in possibilities. Phoenix showed us that every heart has the capacity for extraordinary healing. Sometimes it just needs someone to believe in it first. The night ended with a special ceremony where new patients were welcomed to the facility. As each person shared their hopes for healing, Phoenix stood watchfully nearby, his presence a reminder that sometimes the greatest miracles begin with a single act of compassion. And in the quiet of the evening, as the facility settled into peaceful silence, Sophie reflected on how far they'd come from that day at the auction. Phoenix had done more than survive. He had shown them all how to thrive, how to believe in possibilities that others couldn't see, and how to keep hope alive, even in the darkest moments. His legacy would continue to grow, touching lives in ways that no one could have predicted. But for Sophie, the most important lesson remained unchanged, that sometimes the greatest healers are the ones who teach us how to believe in miracles, one heart at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.